Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Professionals You Should Know. This show's about uncovering the journeys of professionals from different industries. And today, we have the vibrant and insightful Adana Williams, who's the Deputy Director for Autism and Learning Disability Program. So, what is it that you do?
Well, I am currently the Deputy Director for Autism and Learning Disabilities, and this is for the NHS England programme for the South East region.
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's a mouthful.
So what is it?
What does it
Yeah,
involve?
what does it involve? What's the roles?
So it involves many things, but the main crux of my role is for us to deliver the NHS's long-term plan ambition for autism and learning disabilities care.
Wow.
And this is the byproduct of what happened when they investigated a few years ago. There was a scandal called Winterbourne View, and there was other subsequent where there was atrocities in care delivery for those with autism and learning disability. When that was uncovered, it was felt that the response to this was a total reform of care for those with autism and learning disabilities or both. So the program is a product of that. It originally started as a 5-year program called Transforming Care, and I believe it was in 2020 when that program concluded, the long-term plan came in, and that was it. And what I work on now is the extension of that.
Okay, wow, that sounds very
Intense.
very intense, very intense. Yes.
Yes, it can be. It can be at times, but I believe the thing about it is it's hard work, because we know that there are many who are hard to reach, many who have this need, and oftentimes it is quite expensive to deliver that specialist care and to design it, and many of the times what we need isn't available. So we have to have a lot of innovative thinking and lots of changes to how we do things normally. So that makes it intense and challenging. However, when you see the benefits of it,
the bigger picture.
Exactly. So when people are living more full lives, they're able to reach their potential, they're being looked after safely, and there's many other benefits that come with it. Those are the things that make it worthwhile.
So, what got you into this? What was your journey?
Very convoluted journey, actually.
Right, good.
So I originally came into healthcare as a nurse. I trained as a mental health nurse first, and then got into brief psychosocial therapy, went on to work in probably one of the first iterations of integrated care systems, and worked there where there was an opportunity to get involved in commissioning.
Right.
I kind of was pushed into it because I was curious, and I was fortunate to have 2 managers that was willing to let me explore some of the things I liked. Actually, I had a lot of that along my journey, I must admit. And so it led me into commissioning, and then sadly when Grenfell happened, I was involved in some of the work, recovery work around that.
Okay.
And a colleague said to me, she said, oh, I've seen you doing this stuff for your service. I know about what you're interested in doing. Perhaps you should think about doing it on a bigger scale. And I was like, well, what do you mean? So then she mentioned NHS England, which at the time I didn't understand their function in healthcare. And I started doing some research, found out about the Transforming Care program. Unfortunately, there was a job there. So I applied for a job, and that was a case manager job at first. So I got that. And this was probably about nearly 4 years ago now. It feels like just the other day. 4 years ago. So I went in as a case manager and got promoted from there to a regional clinical lead for London, for children and young people. And then I moved on from there to do a few other things. I decided when the pandemic happened that I wanted to do something for my colleagues.
Okay.
And I worked on one of our national wellbeing and resilience program.
Oh, wow.
Ran one of our work streams. Crux of that was procuring services to help staff who were impacted by COVID.
Wow.
And then moved on to there to be one of the national program leads for the vaccination program.
Wow.
Jumped away from that and went on to be a deputy director for the National Musculoskeletal Improvement Program.
Oh, wow.
And all whilst I was doing this, I was doing my master's, which was focused on research related to autism and learning disabilities care. And then when that concluded, a few friends approached me and they were like, look, there's this job going in Southeast. I think you should think about it. And I wasn't interested at the time. But then when I started hearing about this job from so many different unrelated sources, I was like, okay, maybe this is the universe. I need to listen.
Yeah.
So I put in an application just as it was closing. And I went, I was like, oh, yeah, they're never going to shortlist me for that. And then I got shortlisted and I'm here now. So, yeah.
But why was it always autism and learning difficulty? What brought you to that?
I think it's because of the alignment with mental health care. So when I came into healthcare, it was primarily to work in mental health. And I always thought I'd be in some sort of capacity doing therapy or, staying in that patient-facing position. And I'd always had a passion and a like for it because when I was growing up, I had family members that were impacted by it. I recognized that there's a lot of stigma in the Black community around mental health care. And then when I got into autism and learning disabilities, I recognized equally that there are many people who are living at a deficit because they're not getting the right support that they require, again, because of stigma. Some family believe that, they don't want to talk about it, they could pray it away. Some feel that, it's something that they were cursed with. So they're not really trying to get the right help and support for people. So it kind of made me a bit more passionate. And then I have friends and family and loved ones that use these services, and I see the challenges they have to navigate it. So I kind of feel like a part of my overall health legacy, I want to walk away from healthcare at some point knowing that I've made a really positive impact in those areas. So that's the motivating factor.
Yeah, no, that sounds incredible. Okay. Yeah. And is there anyone that will kind of appreciate your services in a sense? It could be patients, it could be clients, colleagues.
I believe is so it's a bit of both, but I feel it's the patients more than anybody that you get the thanks from or that you see the importance of what you do. I think for me, especially in the times because you have moments when it is a challenge because when you're trying to influence multiple different systems and when you've got a lot of asks of you, you do get to a point sometimes where you start to feel a bit beaten down. And then you would encounter somebody with lived experience or somebody who is directly using the services now. And when you hear them talk to you about the impact of maybe a policy change or a service inclusion or something that you're doing that will help make their life or their loved one's life better, then you think, okay, all right, that's why we're here. So, and then you get energized and then you keep going. So, yes.
Is there a particular story that, keeps reinforcing that, you actually are doing a good job?
There is so many, but there's one in particular that I could talk to because this family, they haven't left me, I could say, and in a really positive way. So when I worked in the London region clinical lead role, what often happened is if there were a situation where there was a child with needs that challenged the system, in that they couldn't find the right support for them, they may have presented with really complex behaviors that perhaps they didn't really fit any service that was out there. And when the system were challenged, they would come to me and I would have to work with them to establish a solution for this young person. And I had one such circumstance, and I know the family, they've given me permission to talk about it, and the story is out there. So their child, unfortunately, had been in a residential school for many years. I think it was about 7 or 8 years at the time. And he'd had an instance where he had an escalation of his behaviors, and the team that was looking after him wasn't sure what to do. So they'd gotten to a point where they went to A&E. Sadly, mum and dad had been away at the time, so they were on a little family holiday, so they weren't on hand as they usually were to give some guidance and some support to de-escalate with the team there. So he ended up in A&E and subsequently ended up in a mental health assessment and treatment unit, and which can happen with our young people and those with this specific need. And whilst he was there, the ward manager recognized it was not the right place for him. He needed something more. And the home where he was also were concerned that perhaps the behaviors they were seeing were very different to what they'd experienced from him historically. Anyway, it got escalated to me, I got involved, and together we agreed a collaborative community support package for this young person. And it involved multiple agencies coming together. So it was the education side, social care, and the health side coming together to create this support package. And since he's been in the community with that intensive support, he has been thriving. The family send me regular updates of the things that he does. So he cooks. The family are Jehovah's Witnesses, so he goes out on witnessing with his peers. He has a much fuller life. The staff there are from their heritage, they have Ghanaian heritage, and the staff there help him prepare meals that he, and it is very different to the experience that he'd been having before. And what is great about the community placement, it's a home for life. And and it's more than you could ask for. So that is one story that sticks with me, and it inspires me, and his parents' approach to willingness to work with services, the amount of things they've taught, across the board, other parents and carers, and they're really inspirational. And it's people like this that keep me going.
Yeah, I can see why. That's very inspirational, as you said. That's an amazing story. I love it. Okay, and do you feel that there's any misconceptions to the role that you're in?
Misconceptions.
It could be like, don't
you mean
do much
people's understanding
of what you do?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions. So let's start with the obvious. They always assume that I'm rich and the job pays a lot. And I have to tell people all the time, there is nobody in the NHS who is rich. Nobody. Yeah. If you make a decision to come into the NHS, you know you're there because of passion, mostly. They don't pay us the way they're supposed to pay us. I keep saying that we need to do some comparatives between the footballers and see what happens there. But in real life, that's one of the misconceptions. The other misconception is that people believe that I have the power to go in and shut down services or create them out of thin air. I don't. Okay. Everything that we do in our role, especially now that the way the NHS functions is changing. So as of July, I think it was, I don't want to say July the 1st, I'm bad with dates, we figure it out. But as of July, we have now moved to an integrated care system way of working, which means that some of the commissioning function, which used to be held by NHS England, is now held between systems in the region. So what used to be, I suppose, clinical commissioning systems, they're now integrated care systems grouped with the pooled funding, and they make decisions about how they deliver the NHS's ambitions for care pathway. We used to have a lot more control. Now we have influence. So it means that you have to work in a different way, and you have to work in a collaborative way. And if those systems are not willing to work with you, they will not deliver the outcomes that you want. So I think a lot of it is about relationships now, where before it was a lot more about function. So, we need to work with them in partnership, as opposed to being in a place where we had a lot more leadership and autonomy, etc. So, so you have to be nice.
But that's good.
You have to be nice.
All right. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go to another point of the show.
Okay.
It's called Rapid Fire. But it's not really rapid. It's only just 3 questions. It's either yes or no, or pick a choice.
Yes.
So for our first question, would you say that the rise of technology is either helpful or harmful for those that fall on the spectrum?
Helpful, because there are lots of digital enablers that help improve people's ability to navigate everyday life, especially if you're somebody who have a particular sensory diet or sensory need. If you have, and also I could even think, like, in terms of speech and language, immediately, that's a great point for that. So if perhaps maybe there are challenges around your ability to communicate, you can use a digital enabler to help you be more efficient with that and be more effective. So in many ways, it could help promote inclusion. But that being said, with all things, you have to have balance, and there are elements of it that is dangerous and unhelpful as well, like social media and how social media can be, and what it means to be watched all the time when you have lots of, people have cameras in their house now, they have different things in their house, and I feel like it gives you a different layer of exposure that you didn't have historically. So yes.
So helpful.
Helpful, definitely.
Okay. So for our second question, do you feel that there are nutritional deficiencies with those that fall on the spectrum? Yes or no?
Nutritional deficiency. I wouldn't say that it's specifically related to their diagnosis.
Right.
What I believe you would find, there can be inequalities in health with those who are on the spectrum based on the care that they receive. So for example, if you look at the leader reports that look into learning and understanding from the depths of those with a diagnosis of autism and learning disabilities, when you look at some of the health inequality challenges they experience as opposed to those who aren't, you see that there's a gap. And I believe that it's primarily to do with the fact that some things are neglected when you're focusing on other stuff. So if you're in a care home, people might be focusing on treating the things that you present with most prevalent. So that might be your behavior that challenge. That might be they're focusing on your speech and language, but there might not be a focus on taking you to the dentist, for example, getting your eyes checked, or maybe making sure you get your 5 a day, or, that might not be the focus, because it would be on ensuring that the funding they're receiving to deliver the care is covering all your needs, and that might mean cutting corners in certain spaces. And it may mean that you might not get access to the most nutritional food. It might mean that because you present with behaviors that challenge those working with you, say, well, I will give him or her or they or them pizza, as opposed to sitting down and taking the time to make a meal. So it could lead to you having those deficiencies, but it is not strictly related to your diagnosis, if that makes sense. So it could be a byproduct of your presentation, your place of care, and the knowledge of those working with you, as opposed to you being born with an additional need, meaning that you're going to have this deficit.
Right. So
it doesn't go hand in hand.
Okay, so no.
No.
Good. Okay, so for our third and final question, with such a demanding job with many responsibilities, if you had a choice to renew or relax, what would you rather? A luxury yoga treat in Bali or a hike in Swiss on the Alps?
You just said relax.
Renew and relax.
Renew and relax. And all I heard was yoga, which means that I'm going to be working out, and hiking, which means I'm working out. So where is the relaxation in this when I collapse? So if I have to choose, I would definitely be in Bali, but I'm telling you for free, that yoga instructor will have to come and find me in the spa. Yes. Fair enough.
Alright, so for our final questions, so in your opinion, where do you feel the healthcare industry will be without your profession?
I believe that we play a critical part in ensuring that there is improvement in care for those with autism and learning disabilities. And there's always the risk of what has happened in places like Winterbourne View and Wharton Hall to continue. I believe that what we do is we act as a place of bringing together all the services, raising awareness of where change and improvement is required, and supporting the systems to have good strategic plans to implement and deliver those change. So, and also to check and challenge them as well in terms of that delivery and investment that the NHS is making into this particular care pathway. So I feel quite strongly that the privilege that I hold is being able to have that lens, have that voice, encourage inclusion, encourage the advocacy, and ensure that we are collaborating with those with that lived experience to help improve the services for more to come. And also critical to my role is future proofing them. So making sure that when I'm gone, the generation that's coming after is still getting that same high quality of care, but also with a focus on evolution so that we change when the needs change.
That was powerful. Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And I guess everyone else will appreciate that.
I hope so.
Of course. We're making a change. This is
I hope so. I'm trying to.
Well,
and I think it's important to recognize as well, it isn't just about one. And I think a lot of the times when we work in our roles, we think, well, it's my job to do X or it's my job to do Y. You are only as good as the sum total of the teams around you. So I have really amazing colleagues that I work with within my direct team who support my function, but also those in the system like integrated care leaders, our chief nurses, my director of nurses, and others in our working space that help enable our function. And we couldn't deliver what we do without them.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And do you see that your role can progress in any way, or do you see any progression in your role at all?
I believe there's always room for progression,
right.
Absolutely. I think in terms of in my role specifically, yes, there are opportunities to move on to different roles within the national team and different leadership roles as an offshoot of this.
Right.
But for me personally, in terms of my career progression, I know I will stay in healthcare. I don't know if it would always be specifically related to autism and learning disabilities. I think I've demonstrated in terms of my career paths thus far, it has been varied. So what I know my personal ambition is to ensure that whatever I do is leave a bigger legacy of better care. So whatever path that takes me, it's going to be about that. That will underpin whatever I do.
And do you think there's anything missing within the profession, or?
Yeah, within this profession? Yeah, I feel like we do need to have a lot more partnership working with those with lived experience. I think who feels it knows. We have, as part of our commitments in the long-term plan, we said we would do co-production. And I believe that we need to be doing that in a true sense of the word, which is encouraging those with that lived experience to join us from the inception of new concepts, new ideas, new strategies. So when they're forming, bring them on board so that, and not adding as an afterthought. Because if you've not lived and walked that path, it's very difficult for you to understand the potential impact of what you're trying to change or what you're trying to introduce. So that voice needs to be there. So it is missing. It's a missing component.
No, I completely agree. Yeah. It's very insightful. I learned a lot about the different pathways and, your role and how important it is that, we're helping the community get a better delivery of care, in a sense.
Better health outcomes as well. That's the key ambition.
Okay.
And actually, to tell you, in essence, what that ambition entails. So we have an ambition to reduce the number of people who are in hospitals, who don't need to be there, and who could be in the community with the right support, living a fuller life. Another key ambition for us is to ensure that those who meet the criteria for an annual health check gets an annual health check that is accompanied with a health action plan that supports them. And again, it could help prevent some of those health inequalities we see for those who we serve. Another key ambition around it is to ensure that they get care and education for children, treatment reviews. For adults, it's care treatment reviews. They are an important part of assessing that overall care pathway, ensuring that it's fit for purpose, that they're getting the right access to all the support that is available to them as individuals. And another key aspect of our program is developing and building services closer to home, reducing waste time and increasing access for everybody to get that care, to ensure that those who are underserved get that, and also to bring some balance. Just in the same way we have that lens and that investment in physical health, is also making sure that we have the same equity for those with autism and learning disabilities too.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's some of our key ambitions.
It seems very rewarding once it's been achieved.
Once we get to do it, you know. But I guess the big thing is, as we know with health, it's money. It takes money
time
to do these things, and it takes time, you know, and it takes expertise. And one of the things that we recognize is missing is some of those key professional roles that enable our functions. You know, like speech and language therapists, you know, those who do behavioral therapies. All of these things are really, really critical roles and functions that we need people to train and come into to support that care delivery. So
Yeah, as I said, I learned a lot. You've been fabulous today.
Thank you.
Is there anywhere we can find you, or
Yes,
get a little
you
more
can.
information?
You could find me on LinkedIn.
All right, okay.
I have a LinkedIn page.
All right.
I also have a Twitter account, but I'm here to tell everybody
That's what
I am useless when it comes to social media and interacting. I'm trying to get a bit better, in particular on LinkedIn, because you know, I feel it's really important to have visibility as a woman, a Black woman working in healthcare. And I think also to show those nurses and others that's coming up what else you can do with your studies, because I'm in a non-clinical role and I started on a clinical career pathway. So I think it's important to highlight that visibility and to let people see the art of the possible, really. So I owe it to others to do more. Okay. I'll try.
No, but again, it's been absolutely amazing for you to come on the show. I really appreciate all the information that you gave to me and everyone else, and thank you for coming.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been a great experience.
That's great, and thank you all for joining.